Okay, now I'm gonna talk a little bit about glaze flaws. So problems that you may run into when you glaze. So you'll notice this piece is cracked really bad. She actually glued it back together with JB Weld so it would actually be in one piece. Why did this crack? It's because the glaze on the inside was way too thick. So if the inside of your vessel is glazed way too thick, what will happen is a thing called glaze compression. So you can kind of see how thick that is. What glaze compression is? What glaze compression is when your glaze is unequal on both sides. So if you have a whole lot more glaze on the inside than you do on the outside, the glaze will compress onto the vessel unevenly and it will force the piece to crack. You know, so what you have to think about is glaze is designed to shrink with the clay body and to fit with the clay body. And if you've got more pressure on the inside than on the outside, your piece is going to crack. So you want, when you glaze the inside, you want to make sure you thin out your glaze so that you don't have that problem. Also, crawling, which I've talked about before. So here's a great example of crawling. So you see the inside of this bowl is the clay body right there. That's because the glaze was a little too thick. And honestly, this glaze should not have crawled. This is not too terribly thick. I've seen worse. This one's doing it too. So like I was saying, we have this piece that is crawling right there. The glaze is crawling, but probably what the bigger culprit with this was the way that the particles in the glaze were packing. And so what I mean by that is, what is the first thing you do before you glaze something? You want to rinse it off, and you want to get all the debris and dirt off of it, and then you want to glaze it. But if your piece is really wet, if it's after washing it, your particles won't pack very well. Your glaze particles are not going to pack well onto your clay body, because the way glaze works is that it sticks to something that's really porous. So our bisque work, that's also why we bisque to low temperature, so that the piece is really porous. So it's like a big sponge. And when it's like a big sponge, it just sucks up the glaze and holds the glaze on there. And so that's the thing that really dries the glaze, sticks it to the piece. And so if your piece is really wet when you glaze it, the glaze doesn't pack as tightly. It doesn't, the clay body doesn't soak up all the extra water as quickly and as readily, and so that then it has to, the glaze that's been applied on here sort of has to air dry, and it takes a long time. Versus if this is really dry and porous, it sucks the glaze on, it sucks it on tight, and you got nice tight particle packing. And so if you have that nice particle packing, you're less likely to have pinholes or even these sorts of crawling situations that happen. So really what you want to do, you want to rinse your piece, and then you want to let it dry before you glaze it. So ideally you're going to let it dry for a day before you glaze it. So I'm just going to do a quick rinse. Alright, so now before I glaze the inside of this piece, I want to let it dry for a day. Otherwise I might have this situation going on with it. Another thing that you can do is, if you don't have that sort of time frame to wait, you can grab a different piece. So we'll just grab this here, somebody's leftover piece, and we will go over to the air compressor, turn on the gate, open the gate, and then blow it up. So then turn it back off. So that can be a way to speed up your process a little bit. Don't forget to blow the inside. This one's hard to get into that inside. Really what is your enemy, and that's probably the main reason we like to rinse our piece, in case there are any sort of oil sort of things on there. So don't be putting on hand lotion before you glaze, and don't be eating greasy French fries and then come into the glaze room. careful about that transfer from oils onto your piece. Okay, the first thing you want to do when you glaze after rinsing your piece off is glazing the inside. So you want to glaze the inside first because you're going to pour your glaze in here, and then when you pour the glaze out, it's going to dribble all over and it could really mess up what you've done on the surface. So you always want to glaze the inside first. So here are our glazes, our low fire glazes. We'll just get the seafoam out here. These glazes will probably always have some water on the top. So you can see all that water on the top. So they need to be mixed up. The glazes all need to be mixed up. So we have drills for that. Okay, so now I'm going to do the finger test on this to see how thick this glaze is. So it's important your finger is nice and dry. And you want to look at your fingernail. So you just dip your finger in and then look at your fingernail. And so by the time I got over to you, it thinned out a little bit. That's not bad actually. It would be a little bit better if it were thicker to brush with. So it's a little too thick to pour into your vessel. And so you're going to want to thin it out. So here we go. We're going to thin it. Oh, I didn't do a very good job of mixing it, that's for sure. I should have mixed it better. We're going to thin it with about 1% of water. Not very much. I just put maybe a ½ inch of water on top of there. I'm just gonna use a wire whisk to mix it up with. So we're gonna do that finger test again. I'm gonna make sure my finger's nice and dry. Oh, that's perfect. That's great. That's what you're going for. That is a good consistency to pour inside your vessel. Okay. So this is how you do it. Pour it in. Since that was a hair on the moist side, I'm being a little bit slow with this and taking my time. I'm just going to try and get that whole surface. And that's all there is to it. You only do that once. And then you just take a look at the inside. So part of the problem here, to me, it looks a hair on the thin side. I can see my clay body through there pretty well. And part of the reason is because my vessel is still really wet. I didn't wait to dry. I didn't wait a day to dry it. So you could do it one more time if it still looks too wet. And we would be happy to guide you through that. But actually that's not too terribly bad either. That's probably okay. If your vessel is shaped more like this, it's easier just to pour your glaze in, cap it off, slush it all around, and then pour it back. That's it. That's all there is to it.